What up, artists? Wyatt Paints here, and today I've got a stranger video for you. The person that commissioned the Vecna bus wanted me to finish off the set and do his hand, so that's what we're pulling off today. I'm gonna grab my paints and head to my table. Let's get started. I started on top of black primer with sanguine. Since this hand was going to be displayed with the bust I had done in an earlier video, I wanted a similar paint scheme. So I used a heavy stipple to lay down the base of the darkest red. While doing this, I made sure to not completely cover all the black in order to leave it in the deepest of shadows. If you want to try this, just remember you want to shoot for around 90 to 95% coverage. Otherwise, it'll make the model look a little too dark, and you'll lose detail in the shadows. Next up is Glory Red. While this red may seem very similar to the sanguine, it's one of the many steps in tone shift that I will be using for this hand. Because when doing a gradient, the more steps you take from the darkest tone to the highest tone, the smoother the overall transition will be. So while this may not seem like much of a difference, you kind of have to trust the process for now and push through. Following this, I turned to fresh blood for my next transition. Here, I used a heavy dry brush to start working my reds up in vibrancy. I still had 2 more steps of plan highlights, so the coverage I was looking for was about 60% of the surface. It's important to remember when doing this, to let the color build up slowly, so that you can hit the brakes and move on to a different area. Thankfully, lighter color sitting on darker tones blends really well, so it will be pretty forgiving if you overdo it. Just go slow so that you stay in control of the dry brush, not the paint. Vermilion was my next step up. Again, this is a dry brush, but here I made sure I didn't have too much pigment on my brush. This color is quite vibrant once dry, so as important as it is to get this where I want it, it's more important to not get it where I don't. So doing this, the first few swipes don't even touch the model. And I ease my strokes closer until I'm just grazing the peaks of the details. Midland Flesh mixed with the vermilion gave me my final highlight. I reserved this for the few spots on his hand where the thorns were growing out. This way the hand is tied thematically with the bust while standing out on its own. While the hand will be darker than the bust overall, I went with this in the sense that Vecna's hands are stained in blood. Doing the skin has completed 90% of this wall decoration. One thing left was the thorns. For those, skeletal bone was used to lay down the base. While doing this, I made the choice that these thorns were actually a form of teeth that just grow out of his body randomly. And with that in mind, who would have time to brush all these teeth? Not Vecna, that's for sure. That makes me think that most of these will need a bit of rotting to fit in with the vibe I was going for. After basing, I switched over to a sepia shade. I took a few coats of this shade to get the ochre tone I was after. Anytime you want a deeper shadow from a shade, it's important not to leave deep pools on your model. You'll get much better results if you just do multiple thin coats of that shade instead. Once the shade was established, I went back to the skeletal bone, but thinned down a bit to clean up the tips of the thorns. While I do want them to look gnarly, these clean tips add a bit more aggression to the piece in the sense that the tips are clean because they're used so often. Unfortunately, I don't have my usual spinny 360 shot, as I shipped out the hand to my client before I realized I hadn't filmed it. Thankfully, I did have this final picture to show you. If you'd like to get this model for yourself, there's going to be a link to the STL down in the description. Now, this was kind of a fast one, so you know what? Sit back, relax, and enjoy some of Wyatt's sexy nudes. Wyatt's sexy nudes. Today's sexy nudes are cheese ramen from Otogi. This is a Korean style noodle and it is very nice. Comes with a veggie pack, soup base, and a cheese pack. And if you really want to take it up to the next level, drop a little bit of butter in there. Now, you don't have to do this. In fact, you probably shouldn't. But if you did, it'd be delicious. That's part of the joy of being an adult. You can just choose to live your best life. And sometimes that best life is a little butter in your ramen, even if it's just once. Dare to live. Cook the noodles for no more than 4 minutes. In fact, if they look like this in your pot, you've got 60 seconds to pull them out before they're overcooked. Now, don't use all that water. You only want enough for the noodles to be soaking in a bath, not drowning. Those are some sexy noodles. If you want to try these sexy noodles for yourself, there are Amazon links in the description. It won't cost you any extra, but Basil will toss the channel a few cents for the referral. That way, you can support the channel and have a nice meal as well. And as always, thank you for watching, stay creative, and enjoy the process.